I love that with the chamber, we've done a really good job, I think, of helping educate business owners about what things they can do to mitigate their costs. But there's a huge crisis as it relates to the insurance industry. I mean, I've been in business almost 40 years, and it's been about that long since there's been any kind of reform, Prop 103. And so you're seeing between, catastrophes that you've already talked about and shrinking markets, what are you going to do? How are you going to be involved in that conversation about, restoring the market and also making it so that we can have confidence back with business owners?
Well, first of all of us have to understand, if you don't have insurance, you can't build houses.
Correct.
People can lose their entire livelihood if they're uninsured. I'm on the unfair plan, which is not covered by Proposition 103. And so they could do whatever they want. If I lost my home and I'm in the process of bolting it down for an earthquake because of that, if I lost my home, I would have nothing except a monthly payment that I would be responsible for. The fact of the matter is, not having insurance as this state is not something that we can accept. It's a necessary thing in the course of business. So how do we get here? We were the only state in the time of climate change and catastrophic events that didn't do catastrophic modeling. The only state that didn't do reinsurance. Why reinsurance? If a company, insured X, thinking it was going to cost them $100 million and it cost them $200 million, and that's going to make them bankrupt, they do from the $100 million to the $200 million to get reinsurance. If they can't do that, they're going to go bankrupt. And with these catastrophic events, that potential is great. And then finally, we were the only state, because of Prop 103, that didn't do, that took more than 3 months to pass a rate hike. It's about 18 months in this state. So we're starting to change that finally, and what I've said is we should have saw this a long time ago. Why? When the whole market leaves, all the insurance companies leave the biggest market, then you got to look in the mirror and say, maybe it's us. Why would they leave the biggest market? Now, some of them, look, let's be clear. A lot of us have fought with our insurance companies from time to time. And they're not always dealing, straight with consumers. But you can't take that to the extreme and push them on all of the market. So what am I going to do? Put a group of stakeholders together, consumers, insurance companies, business, homeowner, representing, homeowner groups, developers, the broad cross-section of folks, and look at what other states are doing to remain solvent in these times. And I intend to make that a priority because we lost a lot of homes in this town, in Altadena and the Palisades. Good people, hardworking people. I talked to somebody last night. He got canceled by his insurance company 6 weeks before the fire in the Palisades. He loses his home. The unfair plan is only going to pay, I think he said $3 million for a home that's going to cost him $11 million. So he has to pay the delta between 3 and 11, which is 8. Not everybody can do that. He's a very wealthy man. He said to me, Antonio, I can survive that. He says, what about the grandmother, on Social Security that owned that house for 50 years in the Palisades, wasn't rich? What do they do? That's why this is an emergency, and as governor, I'm going to take it on day one.
Yeah, affordable housing, that's key. What makes it unaffordable is, as I share when I have an opportunity, it's the bureaucracy that makes it unaffordable. Because a 2x4, it doesn't cost so much more than it did 10 years ago. I mean, we're talking dollars. So housing is still affordable. As a developer, as a builder that understands, putting together schedules, and as a purchasing person, I can tell you it's not much more expensive to build a house today than it was 10 years ago. So, that myth is that the bureaucrats or the powers to be or the financiers or the way we're getting the money is what makes it unaffordable. And we are starting a coalition with the group to help these fire victims in Altadena. Our meetings tomorrow, and myself are going to be part of the think tank of the group that's going to be putting this together. So we are there with you. We do want to help our community somehow.
So talking about affordable housing, so every city has a mandate throughout the state of California to build so many units of affordable housing. And if they don't, they can get in trouble. How do you feel about that?
Look, I was a mayor. I tell people I should have been a mayor first and then Speaker of the California Assembly. I said the same thing to my staff that Jerry Brown did when he was mayor. I'd say, who voted for this? Right? And they'd look at me and they'd say, you did, sir. And I said, well, good intentions don't always have good results.
Amen.
Wow.
So I believe that cities are all different.
Mm-hmm.
And, we should make laws that reflect those differences and give them some latitude.
Yeah.
Downey is not Santa Fe Springs.
Yeah.
Santa Fe Springs is not Norwalk. Norwalk is not Compton. Compton's not, Hawthorne.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we need to push broad regulations because we do need more housing, everybody.
Yeah.
And let's be clear, some cities and too many communities don't want that housing.
Yeah.
And I say that's unacceptable. My daughters, my son have every right to buy a home too. And it used to be that home ownership was part of the American dream.
Yeah.
Now for our kids, it's 3 roommates and a crowded apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And for families, working families, it's 2 families to an apartment.
Yeah.
Why? We don't have the housing. We need more homeless housing, affordable housing, workforce housing, and market rate.
Yeah.
Some of the people just want affordable. Well, we need that, but you need all of it. Because what will happen if you don't have market rate, they'll push up the prices of workforce. If you don't have workforce, they'll push up the prices of affordable. If you don't have affordable, they'll push up the prices of homeless housing. But too many people up there in Sacramento don't get that because they have no idea what they're doing. And so they say across the board, all we want is affordable.
Yeah.
We need an all of the above. We need more supply. That's the way to keep rents down. The way to keep rents down, if you could go to an apartment that costs you $1,800 a month, or one exactly like that and costs $2,200 a month, which one are you going to go to? You're going to go to the $1,800.
Yeah.
When you don't have supply, the $1,800 is $2,200 and the $2,200 is $2,600.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yep.
So I understand that. I know that the next governor is going to have to focus on that. And what my candidacy, I think, represents, look, I came out of the civil rights movement, the Chicano movement before that.
Mm-hmm.
I was 15 years old. I started the United Mexican American Student, the Black Student Union. I led the walkouts back then in the 60s. I was fighting for immigrants. Ni podía hablar ni una palabra de español. I grew up Mexican American Chicano. I didn't speak any Spanish.
Yeah.
Now I do.
Yeah.
But I tell people I've been fighting for those things my whole life. But what people got to understand, you could fight for those things and still understand you got to have a balance.
Yeah.
You got to be for workers. You got to be for small business and business. You got to grow our economy. You got to be, for affordable housing, but you got to be for all of the above, or affordable housing won't cost it out.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. If you want affordable housing, the government has to provide some incentives for that.
That's right.
And what I can tell you is this. The average homeless house right now that they're building in California, about $850,000.
Yeah.
My kids can't afford that, okay? No. My kids can't afford that. $850,000. You could build small homes for $100,000. You know, you're not going to live in an it's not sustainable.
Right.
But we're doing things like that because there's not enough common sense, man.
And I think that's really the point that we wanted to give you this opportunity for this platform to drive that message home, that you bring the business perspective, to our Latino members of our chamber, but as well as, you understand it, the good, bad, and indifferent, you understand that, right? So let's talk about something else that's kind of a hard topic, but I'm going to throw a hardball at you right now. So, I was in Texas a few weeks back, and I noticed the price of gas. I mean, gosh darn it. It's like it was back in the 60s here in California. And in our, in California, we pay the highest gas tax in the country and higher price of gas. Now, I know we're trying to push the issue of electric vehicles and this and that, but there are still a lot of people who want to drive gas-powered vehicles. So how do you plan to deal and address that for our residents, the gas prices?
Well, I'd say two things. It's actually a softball.
Oh, okay. All right.
Let me tell you why.
Okay.
I'm the only candidate talking about it. I've been talking about it from the day I got in the race. I said, who are these people? We keep closing down refineries, and we have the highest gas prices in the United States of America, and we produce the cleanest fuel. And so because people want to go all electric,
Yeah.
they're over-regulating these refineries, refusing to accept technologies like carbon recapture because they don't want them to be cleaner. Mm-hmm. They want to get rid of them. And so when I've said that on the radio and on TV, my folks, my strategists said, sir, why are you defending refineries? People don't like refineries. I said, I'm not defending refineries. I'm defending people that drive a Ram pickup and have to go to work an hour and a half to 2 hours. They can't afford $8.75. And then I said this to the Democrats. Excuse me. To the Democrats, I said this. I said, if gas prices go to $8.75 a gallon, that's what USC says will happen if one more refinery closes. If gas prices go to $8.75 a gallon, I said, we'll have a revolution. Mm-hmm. Everybody's going to go to that orange guy in the White House. Mm-hmm. Because that's view either. He doesn't believe in climate change. That's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. I tell people, I'm not falling off the flat earth with those folks on that side of the ledger, or have my head stuck in the clouds looking for pie in the sky with these folks. Mm-hmm. There's a middle. And the middle understands, yes, we're going to transition to climate change, and we should do so as quickly as we can. But you can't put it all on the backs of small business and, importantly, working families and middle-class families. You got to do it in a way that has some balance. We're going to have natural gas and oil for probably another 30 years, okay? I already told you we want to go all electric by 2035. Some of you might have an electric car. That's great. My sister does. That's a wonderful thing. We've only built 167,000 charging stations. We need 2 million more in the next 10 years. And if we built it, we don't have the grid. So why aren't we building the grid if we want to transition fast? Yeah. Instead of over-regulating refineries and picking up gas prices. Right. Another thing we can do, and I will do. We use 10% ethanol right now. Excuse me. We're going to 15% ethanol. When we go to 15% ethanol, that reduces 20 cents on the gas tax. Okay? Why not 25 or 35%? Brazil uses 85. You know why we've opposed it? Because we want to go all electric. Ethanol is a cleaner fuel.
Yeah.
When I did the buses, my mother rode the bus her whole life. So I said, and everybody was talking about the trains, and I think you all know I built more trains than any of the mayors before me or after. But I tell people, I want first-class bus system because my mother used to bus. I'm the guy that took all the graffiti off those buses. And remember the way they were in the 80s and the 90s? I'm the guy that took them off. I worked with the taggers and, and held them accountable too. And so we did all clean fuel. People said, why aren't you doing all electric? Because it won't work. But we have the cleanest fuel fleet in the world. So the other thing I tell people that comes with experience, don't let the perfect get in the way of the good. Mm-hmm. When you're 15 years old, 18 years old, and you on a college campus and you read all this stuff and you think that makes sense, well, it might make sense until you have to pay for that gas and realize, well, hold it. Mm-hmm. And what I've said is, the way to get people buy-in on climate change and the sacrifices over time that we're going to have to make is not to put it disproportionately on poor people and small business.
Yeah.
Let's put it on everybody. Let's do it over time so it's gradual. And then let's go on in. We're never going to get, as an example, to net zero by 2045 unless you do small nuclear.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we don't really have the technology for it completely yet. We have some.
Yeah.
So we need an all of the above approach on energy.
Yeah. And I think
gas.
that's really the the conversation needs to happen, right? Like you said, all across the board, both poor people as well as the corporate executives. But I want to talk about something that's kind of near and dear to my heart because you and I met over this when we first met years and years ago. I have 2 combat veteran sons. I have 2 active duty Army grandsons. I'm an Army ambassador. And you asked me about veterans when we first met. And as a governor, what do you think? Do you ever consider a special for vehicle registration? Like in most states, the veterans, they pay either a modified tax or their registration or no vehicle registration. Do you have any certain plans for veterans as you become governor?
I'm up in the gym every day about 4:30 in the morning.
That's how we say so young looking in the gym. I'm with you. Go ahead.
I want to live for my great grandkids.
Amen. Amen.
I want to live. I want to see them get married.
Yes, sir.
And I tell people, I'm always looking at inspiring documentaries about leaders, about difficult times in our history, movies that talk, and movies that maybe talk about the sacrifices people have made. And I'm looking at right now the Pacific.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks.
Yep.
And Steven Spielberg. I'm on episode 7. And when you see what our veterans go through, fighting for freedom, fighting for liberty, fighting for our democracy, and you don't have to agree with every war we've been in, but that war was a little different, let's be clear, the war against fascism. And I'll tell you something. When they come back, we shouldn't just say, thank you for your service. Mm-hmm. We should do something about it. Yeah. So, homelessness. We ought to prioritize our vets.
Yep.
In virtually every area, we ought to say to our vets, mental health, parity, and virtually every area you can think of, the best way to say thank you is to demonstrate it. Mm-hmm. So I don't have a specific plan, but want to work with you.
Yeah.
Because I know how important it is.
Yeah.
And as you said, we met when I was mayor because I saw that you hired a lot of vets. And I think hiring is going to be another piece that we need to make sure we're doing more of. Because saying thank you is one thing.
Yeah.
Doing, a good deed for our vets is what we all ought to do.
Yeah. And I think, during that time, I didn't think about it back then, but, my younger son, you had put a preferential hiring from LAPD and LA Fire for veterans. You wanted to put these guys to work. Well, my son fell into that. Years later, My youngest son fell into that category. He's now a LAPD officer, a bomb dog, canine handler for LAPD, but he's also a combat veteran.
So he's Metro.
He was Metro. Now he's in canine bomb dog.
Canine is part of Metro.
Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry, you're right. Yeah.
That's right.
And so that's your city. You know more than I do. Sorry about that.
Tell him thank you.
Yes, sir.
For his service.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And I'm glad we did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I want to thank Antonio for the straight talk. I believe that, your journey that you've walked or you've lived definitely makes you a strong candidate for governor. I mean, I'm convinced being, coming from the other side, into the business world. And I'm hoping that the viewers and the listeners play this and be the storyteller. Understand that Antonio is for the people. It's the right thing to do. He brought up some good points that the appointees need to be like-minded, innovative thinkers. We have to keep it simple. Back to the basics was a tagline when we started the chamber, so that we could get rid of all the rhetoric and all the wordsmithing that we all become accustomed to, right? And I believe that things can be put back in order, but we just got to uncomplicate it and get rid of some of the bureaucratic red tape. Antonio, I want to thank you so much for making the time to come and do this podcast for our membership. And any last words? And
Yeah.
I think we're gonna.
Let me just say this. First of all, thank you, all of you, for allowing me to come here and speak with your listeners and your members. I understand how important it is. I actually came out of a small business before I ran, after the mayorship, and before I ran for this job. And so I understand some of the obstacles you face. And I want to say to the listeners, I think everybody's going to, there have been a lot of debates. Everybody's going to talk well. Some of them are going to say the same things. I've noticed that when I say something the next week, someone says the same thing and acts like it was said for the first time. But you need to look deeper than that. I'm a proven problem solver. I'm someone that took on big challenges. When I became mayor, first of all, when I was speaker, I balanced 2 budgets with a surplus. How many times has that happened now? With a Republican and a Democratic governor. I passed the largest expansion of healthcare, Healthy Families. Millions of kids have been on that program. Mm-hmm. I did the largest school bond in U.S. history, and for the first time said, school bonds can't just be for new schools. They got to modernize the inner city schools as well. I did the same thing for parks. Parks before me, in the big bond that I did, more than $2 billion bond, it used to be for new parks in suburban areas. And I said, hold it. What about the places in the inner city that don't have parks? Yeah. And so when I was mayor, crime went down 48%. It was the most violent big city in America when I started. With New York, it was the safest when I left. Built more infrastructure than anybody in the United States of America. As I said, 25% of the cranes apparently were in the city of LA during that time. 1 out of 3 schools were failing. When I was finished, it was 1 out of 10, a 60% increase in the graduation rate. And talking about climate change, #1 American city in reducing carbon emissions, #5 in the world. LA is completely off of coal today because of my efforts. But I tell people this. Everybody's going to talk well. We need a proven problem solver, and we need a uniter. You mentioned that I'd be breaking a glass ceiling, and I would be the first. Yeah. I know that. But I don't harp on that because I want to be everybody's governor. I want to be a governor that unites us, that works across the aisle, that challenges the ugly stuff we see going on with these ICE raids and violations of free speech and due process and, the undermining of our democracy. Mm-hmm. But the way you do it, too, you fight them, but you also take care of the problems that people face every single day. Mm-hmm. And that's what I intend to do. So thank you so much. appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Hope
Thank
to
you.
come back on
Thank you.
at least after the primary.
And the one thing I would say, I think, to our business owners is that every vote matters. So hopefully they've got educated on
yeah.
some of the issues that you stand for, but encouraging the business community to really stay active, really stay informed, and hold government accountable to what it is that they say they're going to do. So thank you for.
Well said. Well
Yep.
said.
Well said.
Yes. And they say once they meet you, want to vote for you. So hey, look at it.
Well, you heard that today.
Yeah.
No, the focus groups were pretty clear.
Yeah.
Once they know the record, that's why I wanted to go.
Yes, absolutely.
And by the way, those things that I just mentioned, those were just 4 of the main things. I could do 20 of them that where I was number one either in the country or number one over time in the city of Los Angeles. I was focused on my job. And I never in my wildest imaginations thought growing up in City Terrace and going to school in Boyle Heights that I'd ever be anything, frankly. Certainly mayor of LA or speaker of the assembly. But once I got to those jobs, I knew I had a responsibility. And the most important responsibility is to open up the door.
Yep.
And I'll leave you with this. I've said, el papel de primero, the role of the first, no es golpear tu pecho y decir, soy tan único, soy especial. It's not to bang on your chest and say, I'm so great, I'm so special. El papel del primero es abrir la puerta para los demás. The role of the first is to open up the door for the rest. I've always understood that was my responsibility, and I'm going to do that in this job. I promise you.
I will tell you real quick. I will tell you, I was never thinking about politics when I met you. I was a business owner. I was a guy that came from a whole different background. But when I ran for office and when I became mayor, 45th mayor for the city of Downey, they showed me, a guy said, have you ever seen the mayor, Antonio Villaraigosa, his schedule? It's called The Day with the Mayor. And it was just jam-packed from dark 30 to middle of the night. And I said, he can do it, I can do it. And so thank you for opening the door, brother. Thank you.
Everybody can do it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. And again, do your homework. California needs a great governor.